and welcome back to another one of my videos. Now, in today's video, I am going to be talking about my fantasy book recommendations. Now, I did 2 weeks ago, I did romance book recommendations, so I thought, why not do some fantasy book recommendations? Now, the first book that I have to talk about is The Wonderful and Amazing Powerless. Now, if you've been watching a couple of my videos, you know that I basically bring this book up in every video because this book is one of my favorite books of all time. No, it is my favorite book of all time now because it's just so beautifully written. Now, obviously, it's a fantasy book and it follows our main character, Peyton. Our two main characters are Peyton and Kai. Now, Peyton, they're in the world of, what's it called? Ilia, I think. Ilia? They live in the world of Ilia, or in the place of Ilia, which basically they're in this place. People have powers. The king, the royal family, has tried to convince everyone that the people without powers are, they've got diseases and all that, and that they'll take away the powers from the people who do have powers. Now, obviously, Peyton, our main girl, she doesn't have powers. So, what's she gotta do? She has got to lie to survive. Our second main character is Kai. He is the king's son. He's second in line, and his father has been training him for the purging trials. Now, the purging trials are this thing where a kid or a person from each of their areas, sectors, gets selected for the purging trials. And I mean, the purging trials are basically like, they're very similar, I would say, to the Hunger Games. This book is just similar to the Hunger Games, but it is amazing. It's got enemies to lovers. It's got moments that have reminded me of Katniss and Peeta. Oh, and the tension is amazing. It's so beautifully paced. I've got the novella and the second book on pre-order already, and I can't wait for them to come out. But yes, this book has my whole heart. This is my favorite book in the existence of ever. The second book is also a part of the series. This series is very popular, and for good reason. It is the Once Upon a Broken Heart series by Stephanie Garber. Now, the books are Once Upon a Broken Heart, The Ballad of Never After, and A Curse for True Love. This book is more like a fairy tale. So basically, you get what you get, and you don't profit. It's very much surface level storytelling. It's as if it's reading as if you're reading a fairy tale. You get surface level, you don't really dive deep, and you don't know everything, and you're left to speculate. And that's what I think is so beautiful about this writing, the writing style and everything. I loved this series. All of the books are 4 stars and or 5 stars. I loved the last book. And it follows Evangeline Fox, she basically makes a deal with the devil. But the devil isn't the devil, it is Jax, the Prince of Hearts. He is one of the Fates, and the Fates are like these magical beings, I would say. And they have their magical things. You learn more if you read the Caraval series, which I recommend you should do before reading Once Upon a Broken Heart. Then you know a bit more about the Fates than what you get in Once Upon a Broken Heart. But it is such a beautiful story. I love Evangeline Fox so much. And in the third book, if you know what happened in the third book, like near the end, me too, girl. Me too. It is just such a beautiful story, this is. And yeah, I don't really have that much more to say on it since since it's just like it's very surface level. So if you're a very much high fantasy person, you might not like this as much, but it is amazing for people who are just like beginning to read fantasy and beginning to get into it. Now, the next books that I have on my list are the This Woven Kingdom series. It's so far a trilogy. It's gonna be a 5-book series, I'm pretty sure. It's by my favorite author Tahara Mafi. She wrote the Shatter Me series, which would be in this video, but they're like more. I view them more as dystopian books, so I'm not gonna mention them in this video. But This Woven Kingdom is also just so beautifully written. It's whimsical, it's magical. These books follow our main character, Eliza. She is obviously our main character, our main girl. Cyprus and Prince Cameron. The first book mainly follows Eliza and Cameron. I'm just going to say Cameron. The second book mainly follows Eliza and Cyprus. And the third book follows just all three of them. All three of them are quite big parts. Now, these books do have multiple POVs, which I love in books. So does Powerless and Once Upon a Broken Heart. Once Upon a Broken Heart only has multiple POVs in the last book, though, I'm pretty sure. In the last book or the second book as well. I think it does have a bit of it in the second book. I'm not sure. I don't remember. But I loved this series. The third book came out on February 6th. I read it in 2 settings just because I had to take a break from my eyes. But it's such a beautiful story. I'm pretty sure it's retelling of like some, I don't know, myths or something. I've heard people talking about it that it's like a retelling. Oh yeah, it's inspired by Persian mythology. So if that's your thing, then you're probably gonna like these books. It's got dragons. It's also got, like, I would say it's also got enemies to lovers. And it's wonderful. It's mystical. It's magical. And I cannot wait for the next book. The next book in this series. The next book that I have on my list is Cinderella is Dead by, what's her name? I'm terrible with names. By Kaylin Bayron, right? Kaylin Bayron. Now, this was a very popular book on Book Talk a couple years ago, and I personally think it deserves all the hype it gets, all the hype it got, and more. Now, this book is what really just got me back into reading once I did start back again. This book was beautiful. It's obviously a Cinderella retelling, and it follows our main character, Erin. Now, she lives in this kingdom where they live based on the Cinderella myth. Cinderella died 200 years ago where this takes place, and there are laws in place that everyone has to follow. For example, they all have to have at least one pristine copy of the Cinderella story in their house, and there's this ball held every single year for the girls to be chosen by a prince or a boy in this, and that's how they do that's how they get people together. It's a really interesting concept. I loved it when I read it. I read it in like 2020, 2021, somewhere around that time. But yeah, I loved it so much, and I do really like Kaylin Bayron's writing, since I have read some of her other books. It's a beautiful story. The next book is Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. I personally have only read the first book. I need to read the second book still. But the first book was beautiful. It was beautifully written. It is a beautiful book, and it follows our 2 main characters, Iris Winnow and Roman Kit. These 2 they work in the same writing firm. They work in the same area of expertise, and they're both up for a promotion, but obviously they both want the promotion, so they're fighting for. And there's also a war going on at this time, a war between the gods. And Iris's brother left for said war. But yeah, this book is like, I don't know how much I don't know what else to say about it. It's it's just, the writing style is beautiful. I think the magic system from what we have gotten is so intriguing, how these two characters can communicate with each other. And I think that this book is really worth the read, and I'm definitely going to be reading the second book. But yeah, those are all the books that I have to talk about right now. Thank you for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next week. Bye!